following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Round 3 of the Summer Classic here in St. Louis. Vasif Durabaili and Varakobian continued their undefeated campaigns in the top section. At 3 wins apiece, the pair is yet to face off. Not far behind is Sam Sevian, who won a past pawn race against Dutch Benjamin Bach. Group B action included Kazakhstan's Dinara Saduakasova making her first trip to the U.S. count with a win over Abrahamian. Alejandro Ramirez wasn't impressed with his own play, but his imperfection was enough against Belis, who can't get off the ground in this event. Round 4 coverage starts now. 20 international chess professionals compete in St. Louis as USChessChamps.com presents the first ever Summer Chess Classic.
Hello everyone, welcome to the St. Louis Chess Club studio and the 4th round of 2018 Summer Chess Classic. I am Women Grandmaster Katerina Nemcova and I'm here with International Master Rosen. Now let's see yesterday's results of round 3 before we look at the games of the round of today.
That's right, we had a very exciting day yesterday with 3 decisive games. Sam Sevian, Vasif Durabaili, and Rosen all defeating their opponents. If we take a look at the standings, both Vasif Durabaili and Rosen perfect so far, 3 out of 3.
And what happened yesterday in Group B? Let's get the graphics and see that Tatev Abrahamian unfortunately lost to Dinara Saduakasova, Josh Friedel drew against Kamil Dragun, Robert Agassarian drew against Sergei Matsenko, Vladimir Belus lost again unfortunately against Alejandro Ramirez, and JJ Alimarandi drew against Andrei Stupokin.
And if we take a look at the Group B standings, we can see there's one clear leader, Kamil Dragun, 2.5 out of 3, and unfortunately for Vladimir Belus, he was 0 out of 3 going into this round. He actually just lost his game, so he has 0 out of 4, very tough start for Vladimir.
And the format of the tournament.
We have 2 10-player round-robin groups with a time control of 90 minutes for 40 moves, plus 30 minutes for the remainder of the game. Additionally, we have 30-second increments throughout the game.
And let's note that players are not allowed to agree on a draw before move 30.
And if we take a look at the schedule for the event, we have games starting every day at 1 p.m. St. Louis time until the last day where the game starts at 11 a.m. Central Time. And if there's a tie in any group, there will be a playoff at 5 p.m. on Wednesday the 23rd.
And today's pairing for Group A, Round 4. We have Benjamin Bach against Varush Akobian, Vasif Durabaili against Rinat Jumabayev, Peter Prohaska against Jeffrey Zhong, and we have 2 already results for Yaro Jerebuk, who drew against Alexander Indich, and Sam Sevian, who drew against Daniel Friedman.
And the key matchup for Group A is Benjamin Bach against Varush Akobian. Varush actually breaking into the top 100 in the world on the live ratings list with a win yesterday. I'm sure he's looking for blood in this game. And if we take a look at the current position, there's been some very interesting developments after a somewhat peaceful Petrov variation. Varush has lunged forward with this move c4. As Ben Feingold would say, this move is very explosive. And Varush looks to be trying to open up more lines on the queen side and create some immediate attack against the king.
And we will definitely stay with this game and look more, but let's see what are the group pairings for Group B.
That's right, we have some very exciting matchups for Group B. Dinara Saduakasova against Andrei Sukopin. We actually have 3 games that are done. Alejandro Ramirez drawing JJ Alimarandi in what was a very boring exchange French. No need to look at that game. We have Sergei Matsenko recently defeating Vladimir Belus. Kamil Dragun against Robert Agassarian, that game's still pending. And Tatev Abrahamian playing her former coach Josh Friedel in what was a very quick draw.
And the game of the day is board 4, Kamil Dragun against Robert Agassarian. Kamil is the leader of Group B with 2.5 points, and Robert is the Armenian very solid grandmaster with 1.5 points. Let's see what is happening in the game.
That's right, and when we were looking earlier, it was a very strategic Queen's Gambit decline position, but there's been some recent moves. It looks like White has gone for the very interesting e4 pawn break, trying to open up more lines and perhaps targets some of the weaknesses in black's position. D take e4 was played, knight take e4, knight d b6, knight e5, and f6 brings us to the current position. Not sure what to make of this position. It seems like there might be some trades between the knights on c4 and e5, and I don't know, it seems like still going to be a positional and perhaps tactical battle.
Yes, it looks like both players will be fighting for a win here. So let's review the prizes, what the players are actually fighting for.
That's right. We have a very generous prize fund for Group A, $22,000 up for grabs with a $6,000 first place prize. Lots of money on the line.
Yes, and the Group B also has a very generous prize fund with the top prize $4,000 and the total prize of $14,000.
That's right, and I'm sure the players will be taking every game very seriously. Every half point counts, as there's a very big differential between first and second place. So it's going to come down to some of these later rounds.
So what if we go back to the Vars game against Benjamin Bach, because I thought it was very interesting position.
That's right. We should take a look at this game because Benjamin Bach has been thinking for a while after Var lunged forward with c4, and if we just take a look at the times, Var has just a great time advantage, 35 minutes to just under 9 minutes for Benjamin Bach, and they're still 20 moves away from time control.
Yes, I'm thinking if taking bishop on e6, connecting the pawns, maybe that's not the move that white wants to do, but white has to decide. Maybe rook h e1 just to develop.
Yeah, rook h e1, not a bad idea. Put the rook on the same file as black's king. I'm wondering if, black seems ready to capture on b3, and it seems like the queen side is going to be opening up
so
here.
We have to decide. So probably white is thinking between b4 or capturing.
So maybe not rook h e1. I was envisioning some line if rook h e1, c take b3. Black has just so much firepower directed at b3. This seems just very bad for white. So yeah, maybe a move like b4. When you're being attacked, it's very important that you try and close down as many lines as possible. But b4 also looks weakening. I mean, it might run into a move like queen a4, as a3 could also be a weakness.
So let's see what Benjamin's going to decide to play here, and maybe let's move on to Jeffrey Zhong and Peter Prohaska game.
Yeah, the Jeffrey game, honestly, this position makes me want to fall asleep. Very symmetrical pawn structure. There are bishops of the same color, so maybe some play for white, given that the pawns on the queen side and also this f7 pawn are all on light squares, but honestly, I'm not sure if this game is going to go much longer. It looks like both players doing very fine on time, and I don't think there's enough imbalances for either side to play for much more.
Mm-hmm. And we actually have one of the players ready to come and join us in the studio. So before he comes in, let's see what's happening on board Vasif Durabaye and Rinat Jumabayev. That was a very interesting opening where Vasif decided to sacrifice a pawn.
Right, and we should actually go back and take a look at Vasif's opening preparation because I was actually very impressed. He repeated a line that he's played before, it's advanced variation of the French defense, and he's actually had this exact position before after queen take b2, and previously he played knight d2, which is the main line, but in this game he played the move knight c3, which is actually a very rare move. I don't think there's been too many games after knight c3, and the idea is to sacrifice a pawn. After queen takes c3, bishop d2, queen a3, black is up a pawn, but white has much nicer development, good center, and nice space advantage. So if we go forward to see how the game progressed, it took a long time for black to actually develop the pieces, and I really like the way Vasif continued to make progress in this position. He played the somewhat paralyzing move rook b6, where the rook is actually very stable on b6. After queen c7, rook fb1, it seems like white is just dominating all areas of the board, and black is still yet to develop most of the pieces. After bishop e7, I actually really like Vasif's next move, bishop d1. Very subtle idea that he simply wants to play queen d3 and bishop c2 and get a possible checkmating battery against the black king side.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that Rinat chose this variation against Vasiv, who is very active, very stubborn player, instead of choosing something that's more solid.
That's right, and we should zoom forward until the current position, because many more moves have been played. Vasif continued to improve his pieces, and if we continue going forward, we can see the time situation. Vasif with over 50 minutes left. Jumabayev severely low on time. Many more moves have been played. Let's just zoom forward here. Bishop g7 leads us to the current position. Seems like Vasif is taking his time, and Rinat Jumabayev can't be happy with what's unfolding.
And what about the game Dinara Saduakasova against Stupokin Andrei?
Let's get to that game.
We have a close Catalan there if we take it from the beginning. So there was d4, knight f6. So we had an opening here. Catalan, everything looks like it's very peaceful. Bishop f4 developing, rook d1, knight h5, rook c1, c5. Here black didn't even try to go and go for any repetition with maybe knight f6, bishop f4, knight h5. Black is also saying with this that he's playing for a win. He's not trying to go for any repeated moves. So b5 happened, knight e5. This is one of the key squares where you do want to control the e5s and have the bishop on g2 open for the diagonal. Then bishop b7, c5. After bishop b7, white may want to think, black may want to think about maybe taking as it can on c4 and then doing something with the bishop. And that's why white decided to play c5 and block the pawn structure, so the bishop on b7 is actually not that good anymore. So f5 happened, knight takes d7, and let's fast forward to the current position. Queen c7, bishop f4, bishop d7, knight d3. Now we can see how white is controlling the dark squares. Bishop e8, rook c1, knight e4, f3, knight g5, bishop h5, rook e1. And finally white succeeded to play e4 to go for some crash in the center and to fight for the pieces to have some better squares. And after f takes e4, Dinara is now thinking what to do. She has 23 minutes. Well, she probably will just recapture. So let's see what happened. We will go back to this game, but I have a player of the tournament B here, Sergey Matsenko. Sergey, welcome. Is this your first time in St. Louis, or?
Second time.
Second time. What did you play here for the first time?
I will play in February some tournament with international master chess now.
Do you enjoy St. Louis? Do you like it
I
here?
like it. Yeah.
Perfect. Congratulations for your win. You had 3 draws. Today a win. What can you tell us about your game? So let's find it here.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about my game because Vladimir's playing pretty bad in this tournament. I don't know why.
Yeah, he started with 3 draws. Now he has
he lost all games actually.
So now he has 3 losses. Now he has another loss. So what happened?
So actually I wasn't prepared for this opening because usually he plays only King's Indian. So yeah, I was a bit surprised.
So that was a surprise from your opponent?
Yeah, I guess so. So I played this position against Friedel, and here I played castle and queen c2. And in this game I decided do not repeat, my previous game. So I played queen a4 to queen c2.
So this is a theory?
Yeah, bishop b7. I guess I played this position against Nizhnik with white. So here I guess the main line queen b6, as I remember. And so queen b6, a takes b5, take, rook, knight g5, I guess. No, maybe not take, maybe knight g5 instead of taking before. Yeah, I guess knight g5, bishop g2, king g2. So yeah, it's should be this should be main line because like my plan is play d3, bishop e3, knight e4.
Wait, slowly. So d3 to play.
Yeah, so it's my plan. So I don't know. Here, yeah, now I'm threatening like takes a takes b5. So he needs to play something like rook b8, I guess, or rook c8. I don't
So
know.
you want to take here and then
Yeah.
this rook is okay.
Yeah.
So let's see rook b8.
Like take d3, I guess. I mean, it should be equal position, you know. So I drew with Nizhnik.
And you were okay with going for a
Yeah,
draw in this
so-
game.
Yeah, so I wasn't prepared also. I was like, okay.
So before was a surprise
Yeah,
for
before
you.
actually, I guess I played this position with black against Bachirov Dmitry. It was maybe difference was like my knight was on b8 and bishop on d6, and so after knight d1, I remember I lost the game without any chances. So here after b4, I was quite happy. So I just played knight d1, and so my plan is super simple. I want to play d3, like b3.
So what do you think about these pawns?
I don't know.
Because
c4 is. I was surprised with c4.
it looks like very weak, especially the king is still not castle at all. Like doesn't seem to have good cooperation with its pieces.
Yeah, it's hard to explain this move, I guess. When you have 3 losses, you know, maybe it seems like, yeah, why not, you know? But
So what do you think is better than c4?
but usually like
bishop
bishop
e7?
bishop d6, I
Bishop
guess. Yeah,
d6.
bishop d6, knight e3, castle. So yeah, but it's, I guess in my opinion, it's like better for white. Maybe not
Knight
knight
c4?
c4, maybe just b3, bishop b2, you know. So white is better here, I guess.
But white has very comfortable play.
Yeah, just knight
Pieces are
c4, rook
developed.
d1, maybe d4. Maybe I
This
don't
knight
even
is
need
nice.
to play d3, so maybe I will play d4, you know.
One moment.
Yeah, so bishop b2.
So
rook
maybe
d1.
that's what black didn't want to allow you to play b3.
Yeah,
and
but
have a
c4 is.
It's very risky, but
Yeah.
it's hard to play when you have 3 losses on your record. So knight e3,
Yeah,
bishop e4.
So she forced me to take. I'm like, okay. Rook c8, queen
So
d6.
is it a sacrifice or a loss of a pawn?
Actually, I don't know. You better ask him, you know. After that,
I don't think I,
I
want
just
to
played like
bring
normal
a
moves, you know.
player
like,
with 4 losses to
Yeah,
the
I
studio. That
understand.
would be sad. Knight c5,
Queen d1, yeah.
queen d1.
d3, bishop e8. Here I played a5, so just I didn't want to let him play a5, so
To have like the
yeah,
structure.
yeah, just okay, a5.
Castle.
Bishop d2.
So at the end, you didn't want to put the bishop here?
I don't need it because he'll play knight d5, bishop c3, and maybe put some piece on c3. So
So this can actually become an issue
yeah,
suddenly.
I don't need it. Just bishop d2,
Bishop d2,
rook
rook
b8,
b8.
knight c4, rook b5. I was surprised with rook b5 actually.
Suddenly this pawn is also a weakness, and
Yeah.
we are already pawn up. This may be a
So
second
yeah,
pawn.
but here I have a problem. I need some space for my pieces. So I played bishop e3 because I wanted to take on c5 and knight d2.
So you wanted to...
Just take on c5 and knight d2, knight b3, bring all my pieces to the game.
So knight d5,
Yeah,
and you just took.
Knight g2. And here, yeah, I was surprised with knight f6. So I thought maybe he needs to play like rook c8, bishop c6, bishop b5, you know. Do not trade bishops. When you trade bishops, I'm comfortable.
But if I play rook c8, can just white go for
Yeah, probably. So.
queen b3?
Yeah, bishop c6.
Bishop c6.
Yeah, I don't like queen b3 because my knight on g2 is kind of weird. So.
But then you put it here.
Yeah. Bishop d5.
Okay, so what do you want to play instead of queen b3?
Yeah, so like knight b3, e3, queen e2, rook d1.
I mean, there is clearly no compensation
Yeah,
for
for
the
sure
pawn.
not.
So
For
we are
sure.
pawn up. Maybe we will get another one. Who knows?
Yeah.
But we don't have any
Yeah,
troubles
I agree to play this position with pawn on c5, you know.
with pawn extra.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so black played knight f6. You
Yeah,
don't
so
think
I-
that is a very good move because
Yeah, I
we
just traded, yeah.
traded the
Knight
bishops.
b3, rook h5. Yeah, I guess it's only chance, you know, to try. He's trying to somehow attack my king, I don't know.
I thought this e4 move is really good
Yeah.
because it blocks the queen from doing anything here. It takes away the control
Yeah, and
of
actually,
b5.
I'm threatening
of the
e5,
knight.
you know, just.
e5 is a threat, so the knight would be after e5. The knight is attacked, and the rook will be attacked as well. Okay,
So he played e5.
so e5.
Yeah, and here he wants to play like queen c8 and queen h3, I guess. So I didn't allow to play it, like knight b6.
At least to try something, right?
Yeah,
so
so
go
queen
here,
h3.
here, and hope for some
Yeah,
attack.
like knight g4, f5. So yeah.
So knight b6.
So queen e8, rook c1, logical move. Bishop d8. So knight c5 again.
I mean, now there is no queen h3
Yeah, so
coming.
no.
The pawn is really
Yeah.
weak.
Also, I had some like knight d5, you know.
When?
Like in any move, I can play knight d5, trading
Here?
knights. No, not after rook h6, with rook on h5 for sure.
Oh, okay. So the idea is maybe
Yeah.
here to play knight d5.
Yeah, for
and-
example, so. Yeah.
So the knight cannot take because
Yeah.
the rook would be.
But I
under
didn't like it.
attack.
Knight c5 is much better, I just want to take on e6.
It makes sense. I mean, the
Yeah.
knight on b3 is not doing much, so we just bring it. Attack
Yeah, actually,
a6.
my only goal in this position is trade queens, like queen a4, so that's it. So
Uh-huh.
it happened.
And then we just go to endgame. We have
Yeah, endgame
another
is
extra
just losing,
pawn on
but-
b4.
Yeah.
The rook is totally out of the game. That looks like a
So I
simple
play queen
work for
a4.
white.
He cannot play queen e7 because of knight c8.
So if queen e7, knight c8.
Yeah, so you can go back on c7. If we play queen c7, it's knight e6.
And there,
Yeah, you just resign.
there's another issue. I mean, there are so many issues with black pieces because they are not coordinated. They're
Yeah.
on last ranks. So if you
Yeah.
go back,
Also, you cannot take on. You can take, but it should be losing.
so if takes,
Just
takes.
take. Yeah. So I'll play like
then-
rook c4, rook c1, so super comfortable.
Hmm.
If you take on b6 first, no, not this position. After queen e4. If you take queen, this move. Take, I guess. Maybe I will take queen first. Yeah, I'll take a queen for sure. If knight e8 takes on b6, you cannot play rook b6 because of knight d7. Yeah, if rook e8, just ab.
Oh, that's another strong pawn coming.
Yeah, just
forward.
b7.
Yeah, this is a very difficult position for black. It's kind of hopeless. So
Well,
black
knight
played
g4.
knight g4 to try for some attack, maybe to grab the pawn on h2.
Yeah, but take f3. So you
Knight
cannot.
f6.
Yeah, so you cannot take knight h2 because of rook
Rook
f2,
c4.
bishop g5, rook e1, bishop d2, rook 1 e2. It's only So if you go
this
back
is-
here, for example, knight h2, rook f2, like bishop g5. I don't know, just trying to do this. Rook e1, bishop d2.
Oh wow,
rook
creating
1 e2.
some
Yeah, I mean rook 1, no 1 e2.
1
yeah.
e2. You have to be careful
Yeah,
because
that's
after
enough.
rook
Rook d1 or
d1,
bishop e3, I
we
don't like it.
still some troubles here are happening. Okay, so we
that's it.
play rook e2,
Yeah, and that's it.
and that's it probably. The bishop has to go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
knight
that's
is
it.
lost. And
Mhm.
Well, very nice game. It looked like a very easy
Yes.
win, not much work.
Yeah, I'm surprised with this. Yeah.
So I have a question. What do you think about the World Championship? Karyakin didn't win the candidates.
Mhm.
How Russia feels about that?
I mean, I feel alright. So I
Alright.
just don't care,
Okay, so you focus on your chess.
Yeah, sure.
And you are a chess professional or a student?
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm a student of Texas Tech.
You're a student. Well, good luck in the tournament. Congratulations for
Thank you.
today,
Mhm.
and hope for the best. So let's look at the game of Vasiv against Rinat Jumabayev. Let's see if we can. Okay, so we have some new games. New moves. So rook c3 happened, rook h3, rook h2, and we see that Vasiv is attacking the king here. And let's see what's happening. Okay. Black may meet some troubles here. This knight is active, but all white wants to do is just to capture and create some space and some open file for the king. What do you think, Eric? We are joined back by Eric Rosen,
welcome
international
back.
master.
Good to be back. I mean, I have to say that it's usually a bad sign if we just clear the arrows here. If you see most of your pieces on the side of your opponent's king, and your opponent has most of the pieces on the other side, it's not a good sign for black. And if we look at the time situation, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this game ends very soon.
And Vasiv, how many points he has?
And he's perfect. He's leading the tournament. If he wins this game, he'll go forward to a perfect 4 out of 4.
Wow.
Can't do much better than that.
It looks like he's unstoppable.
And
Oh wow, rook g3 happened.
rook g3.
Some tricks, because if the pawn takes, then we have knight f3 and the queen is
It's a very clever move, but I have a feeling it's just a desperate attempt to create some complications. Of course, we should point out the beauty of this, where the queen would then be aligned with the white king, and this could walk into knight f3. So I think Vasiv very wisely, instead of playing pawn take g3, he very simply played king h1 which brings us to the current position. Looks like a move was just played, knight f5. And I think the strategy for black is to try and complicate things, to maybe create some situation where Vasif could go wrong. But that's not always a great strategy when you have less than a minute on the clock.
That's what I wanted to say. He has only 30 seconds, if I'm correct. Okay, he made a move, knight f5.
So knight f5, very strange position. Both the knight and the black rook are attacked by white pawns. Looks like Vasif has a lot of time to sort through the complications here.
Yes, and I don't understand what can happen what if I just take the rook? Pawn takes rook, knight takes pawn, king g2. I mean, there are no pieces around the king to attack it.
It seems like black probably doesn't have enough fuel for the attack. Though maybe there could be some continuation here, knight e4, hitting the queen and perhaps threatening the somewhat scary queen f2 check.
So I go queen f4.
Queen f4, defending everything. And I mean, white would just be up a rook and still have the massive attack. Yeah, I would expect this game to be over in just a few more moves. Vasif might just take a good amount of time here just to make sure that he's not missing anything. That's the beauty when you have 42 minutes and your opponent has less than a minute. You can just kind of calm down, take as much time as you need to sort things out.
And we didn't spend much time on the game Peter Prohaska, Jeffrey Zhong. So let's see what happened there.
Yeah, last time we left, I was falling asleep to this game. I think I'm still falling asleep. If we notice, some pawns have gotten traded. White is playing f4, perhaps trading more pawns.
That looks
not
like
too much comment about this game.
It's going to be probably draw soon as well.
That's right, and we should note f4 was played on move 40, so both players doing very fine on time. Yeah, I don't think there's too much to play for with either side.
So let's move on. What about the leader of Group B, Kamil Dragon against Robert Aghasaryan?
That's right, this is our key matchup for today, and the play seems to be getting a lot spicier, especially after black's last move, pawn f4. Putting the question to the bishop on g3, it looks like white might be forced to retreat to h2, which is not the happiest square for the bishop.
That's definitely not. The bishop would like to have some open diagonals, but what can you do when somebody plays f4?
That's true. I mean, even if the bishop isn't so thrilled to be on h2, the white's knights do look pretty nice on e5 and c5. It's a very complex position. There's a lot of pressure here, a lot of pieces directed at this e5 square, black attacking the knight on e5 3 times. And we should note when f4 is played, it does obstruct the bishop from defending the knight. So if I'm not mistaken, after white plays maybe the expected bishop to h2, can black get away with winning a pawn on e5?
Kamil Dragon is such a strong player, and he's already thinking about this move for 4 minutes when bishop h2 looks as such a logical move. So I wonder, maybe there is another thing that we are missing.
Are there any other candidate moves for white? Is there? And sometimes when you're being attacked, the obvious instinct is to look for defense, but sometimes you want to look for counterattack. The only counterattacking move that comes to mind is something like knight takes c4, which I just see has been played. Kamil Dragon appears to be getting up from his seat, but Robert responded right away with the move rook take e1. So lots of trades happening.
Because if black didn't take on e1 and just recapture the knight, maybe I can take on e8 and then even play bishop h4 and actually securing a very nice diagonal for the bishop.
I see what you mean. So white's idea would be after take, white could maybe find a happier square for the bishop. But that did not happen. The rooks did get traded on e1, which brings us to the current position where...
black has a choice which piece to take.
Yeah,
bishop or a knight, what do you want?
I guess it's a question of, which piece could be more valuable for white, and then which piece should you just take off the board. Any first instincts here from the black side?
Usually I want to take bishops when the position is open, plus we are kind of destroying the pawn structure with b takes c4. But the knight's going to be also very active. The knight can jump to e5, and with the other knight on c5, there can be some troubles. But no, black decided to take the bishop.
And I like this decision because it aims to open up the king side. we should keep in mind white's knight is still attacked, and now there's this pawn on g3, which is likely going to trade for the f2 pawn, exposing white's king a bit more. And we also have to keep in mind this d4 pawn is isolated, and it can be, well, it's already attacked by the bishop. It can be pressured again by the queen, and it seems like black might have some positional play to go for in this position.
So what do we do now? Knight e5, right?
Knight e5 looks like the most logical move. Trying to obstruct the bishop, pawn take f2, probably queen take f2.
I agree.
And perhaps if white can consolidate the position, make sure the d4 pawn isn't too much of a target, it seems like it would be a long strategical battle ahead, maybe with some advantage to white, given that black's king is also somewhat exposed. Ideas like queen f7 could be coming, along with knight e6. Black does have to be careful here.
And what if I go queen f6? I feel like the pawn on d2 can be really a huge weakness. So if I go queen f6, try to trade the queens and go into an endgame.
Yeah, queen f6, maybe not a. This is not a bad positional move, because when you when your king is perhaps a bit exposed, sometimes you want to aim for trades just to make the king a bit safer. And we should keep in mind that the more pieces that get traded off the board, the more amplified white's weaknesses become, especially the pawn on d4, and perhaps a potential weakness on b2 as well.
Well, which color would you pick here, Eric? I'm probably taking black.
You would take black? I would have to take white then. I think white is not forced to trade queens, and I really like the combination of the two knights. I mean, these are two beautiful outpost squares. If we continue this line, perhaps one move further, we see a move like queen g3, avoiding the queen trade. And I learned when I was very young that in the middle game, sometimes two knights can perform better than knight and bishop, just because knights can coordinate well if you find the right squares for them.
I won't disagree with that, but I really don't like the pawn on d4. I would not like to play with it. But okay, let's see how the game is going to unfold. And
right.
Maybe let's move on to
We should take a look
game?
at the Benjamin Bach-Varakobian game. When we last left off, the position was getting very, very interesting with that explosive pawn c4 break. A lot of play has developed since then, and they're only on move 23. It seems like Varakobian has a massive time advantage, over 20 minutes on the clock. Benjamin Bach under 2 minutes. We could see Var staying perfect. If he wins this game, he'll move on to 4 out of 4.
I mean, black doesn't have too many troubles and very direct way to play. Just crash the queen side, develop the rook, and see what else is there.
It's true. We have to keep in mind that both kings are looking to be a bit unsafe in this position. I mean, white's king on c1, black has a lot of pressure happening on the queen side with the rook on b8 and the queen on a4. But meanwhile, black's king on d7, also not the safest piece in the world, given being on the same file as the white rook. So I think it can get even more tactical, and this definitely favors the side with more time, which is
what I really like about white's position is the bishop on e4 and bishop on e3, because they are covering the diagonal h1 to a8 and g1 to h7, so there is no rook that can go actually to the a file.
Yeah, I would have to agree that, I mean, white's bishops look beautiful in this position. When you compare them to black's bishops, I mean, it's a somewhat open position, and it seems like Benjamin Bach is doing better with the placement of his minor pieces, but that doesn't always tell the whole story in the position. So this is certainly another game to keep an eye on. I do want to go back to the Vasif Darabeli game, because there have been some developments. I would expect Rinat Jumabayev to still be very low on time, but it is Vasif's move. And actually, I have to correct myself, they just made move 40. So maybe Rinat can breathe a bit easier, given that he is not below a minute. He has 31 minutes on the clock, and Vasif is taking some time here.
I am wondering what Vasif can play here. Probably one of the options is g takes h5, just to try to crash on the king side and see what I can do there.
And we should just take a moment to count material. I mean, if I can do math properly, white has an extra rook for just a few pawns, and with a still very menacing attack on the king side, I wouldn't be surprised if Rinat resigns in just a few more moves.
Yeah, this is a very difficult position for black. There are no chances to really go after the white king. The king is perfect. Yeah, I don't see many options here for black.
And we are kind of reaching the moment where players are reaching move 40, getting more time. I'm not sure if we have a graphic, but we should take a look at the results so far, given the matchups in Group A, because there have been some games which have finished. We have draws between Yaro Jerabuk and Alexander Injic, and a draw between Sam Sevian and Daniel Friedman. But there are still 3 results still pending between Benjamin Bach, Varakobian, Vasif Darbaili, Renato Mabayev, and Peter Prohaska, Jeffrey Zhang.
And let's look maybe back to the Varakobian and Benjamin Bog game, because he found a really nice idea. I like that. He played king d2, just trying to transfer the king to a safer side on the king side and then not worry about anything, any attack on the king.
This is unexpected, but it looks incredibly logical. I mean, when your house is burning down, it's time to move homes. And it seems like the simple plan of perhaps king e2, rook he1, king f1. I really admire this idea from Benjamin Bach, finding king d2 with not too much time on the clock.
And black can probably do the same, just king e8, king f8, and everyone is safe, everyone is happy.
Yeah, we don't see this too often, where both kings are just kind of taking some time to find safer squares, but it seems like it seems logical for both sides, and this might turn from a very tactical, crazy battle to a more positional battle, especially going forward. If both kings do find safety, we can see some imbalances in the pawn structure. And I might have to prefer white in this position, given the superior bishops and given black's potential weaknesses both on d6 and c4. But I'm not sure if I would take white in this position, given his time situation.
Yes, time is always an issue in a game, and we have to think about it. But I feel that white's position is really safe. Especially black cannot take on b4 because a takes b4, and white is going to be the one who's going to be dominating the a file.
That's very true, and it seems like a critical moment. I mean, Var, we can see his hands on his face, taking this very seriously. He has 17 minutes to figure out what to do in this position. I mean, white's king still is on d2, so if black can maybe utilize the next 2 moves to create some issues for white, sometimes especially when your opponent's king is on an awkward square looking to find safety, this is the key moment to try and create initiative in the position. There is a move that pops out here, this somewhat feisty pawn f5, and maybe Var can create some kingside attack.
And actually what happened in the game is bishop f6. So Var
bishop
decided
f6.
to go for a safe move to improve the bishop, attack the c3. I don't see any other move for white, just maybe king e2. Maybe the idea is to play queen b3 to try to trade the queens and have some attacks with the pawn on b3 to promote.
That's true. I kind of like this position idea, queen b3, because the bishop would support both c4 and b3. If we imagine some line king e2, queen b3, the queens get traded, white would be left with a very weak pawn on c3, also on the half open file. And it's very, it seems like an overextended pawn on b3 for black, but it's well supported by the bishop, and it could cause some headache for white going forward in the game.
So yeah, white played king e2. So white doesn't mind, plays king e2. I think we'll go back to this game, but let's see the graphics for Group B. What happened today? What are the results?
That's right, and we should keep in mind we did have some very quick draws in Group B, a few coach versus student matchups. The game between Alejandro Ramirez and JJ Ali Mirandi finished very quickly in an incredibly symmetrical exchange French variation. And then Tatev Abrahamian drawing her former coach, Josh Friedel, and also a quick game. And we did see that game, Sergei Matsenko defeating Vladimir Belis. This is not Vladimir Belis' tournament, unfortunately for him. So we have 2 games pending in Group B. Dinara Saduakasova against Andrei Sukopin, and Camille Dragon still playing against Robert Agasarian. So maybe we should take a look at the Dragon Agasarian game, where I mean, things are heating up. There's still a black pawn on g3. They have 10 more moves to get to move 40. And okay, both players are not in severe time trouble, but I mean, 9 minutes on the clock, 12 minutes on the clock, that's not a lot of time to make 10 more moves.
I think queen h4 is a nice idea to just capture on f4 and trade the queens.
I'm sorry, how are we trading the queens?
If let's say black is to move now, I can take on f4 and I'm forcing the trade of the queens. On f2, sorry.
Oh, on f2, okay. Yeah, pawn take f2 is a threat, and if we keep in mind what we mentioned earlier, a queen trade could benefit black in many cases where white has a maybe slightly worse pawn structure. This does seem like a critical moment. I mean, there's a lot of tension between the pawns. We should also keep in mind the d4 pawn is attacked, so white probably has to respond to this. One of the first moves that comes to mind is a move like rook e4 to defend the pawn and attack the queen. But I wouldn't be surprised if things get traded relatively soon.
Yes, and if Robert wins against Kamil Dragun, he catches him with 3.5 points, I believe, 2.5 points out of 4. So that's definitely his goal.
That's right, and it's a very key matchup for the tournament, so this is certainly a game to keep our eyes on. There has been a move played, Kamil Dragun getting up from the board, maybe taking a coffee break. You need the extra boost when you're getting in time pressure. He played the move knight to f3, which also looks very logical, similar to rook e4. White attacks the queen, defends the pawn. Now it's a question for black. Do you trade on f2 immediately, or do you move your queen somewhere?
That's a good question. I mean, if I play something like queen f4, I have to be also careful about running into knight e6.
That's right. Knight e6 is always looming in this position, and I mean, whenever you're playing chess, you want to look for squares in your opponent's territory that you control very well. I mean, white having two powerful pieces controlling this e6 square, so I don't think that's a move that black would like to run into.
Yes, I can imagine exchange on f2, queen exchange, and then maybe h6, king f7.
So the very simple g take f2, queen take f2, then you're saying trade queens?
Mm-hmm.
Still a bit imbalanced position. I mean, it seems like white would have more activity here despite maybe the suboptimal pawn structure. And we have to keep in mind, I mean, white's knights are still pretty active in the position. White still has access to this e6 square. And not to mention, this pawn in c6 could also be a long-term weakness.
But let's not forget the weakness on d4.
That's right. I mean, when both sides have weaknesses, it creates for a more interesting battle. And sometimes the position becomes how you best defend your own weaknesses and how you capitalize on your opponent's weaknesses. So perhaps there would be chances for both sides.
So let's see what Robert decides to play here. And maybe let's move on to Dinara's game against Andrei Stukopin.
Sure. And this game, I don't think we've taken a look at too much throughout the day. We had a Catalan in which black played a stonewall variation. It seems like Stukopin is the one perhaps trying to play for a win, given he is a higher rated player here. The current position happened after knight to e4 played. At first glance, this is looking like a very peculiar move, given that white has 1, 2, 3 attackers on e4. There's only one defender.
But whenever we take with the pawn from d5, again, the d4 weakness, as we saw in the previous game, that can be an issue.
That's right. So even if white attempts to win a pawn, it could severely backfire if we imagine take. Of course, white should not take with bishop, given bishop take d4 would actually be winning material for black. So I guess it's a question, can white take on e4 once with a minor piece and then with the rook? We can see play is developing, knight take e4 is played, pawn take e4. Now the question is, can white get away with rook take e4? And for the time being, white is defending the d4 pawn enough times, but I'm curious about this move bishop g6.
Bishop g6 just to force the rook away?
Just make the rook move, and I mean, black is not only going to maybe win the d pawn, but he would then eventually win the exchange, right?
So what can be, do you think that's just a lost position for white, or white
I think
about something else to play here?
White probably shouldn't take on e4 with the rook. This is a current position after pawn take e4. Looks like white is thinking here.
It looks like white can have an intermediate move, bishop d6, to attack the rook on f8, and then to recapture on e4.
It's a very nice idea. Making use of what I was talking about earlier, where white is controlling a key square in black's territory very well. Why not put the bishop on d6, obstruct the queen along the d file? This is a very nice offensive but also defensive move.
So probably rook e8 after bishop d6
Rook e8, but then can we go ahead and just take the pawn?
with rook. Yes.
Rook take e4, and I mean the bishop is just amazing on d6, just blocking any pressure from the queen, and is white maybe playing for some advantage here?
It's interesting how one move can make a difference. When we stop black from attacking the d4 square, we suddenly can take control of the c6 weakness and maybe utilize that.
That's right, and even though Dinara is a lower seed, I would have to maybe prefer her position and also the time situation. We should mention she has just over 14 minutes on the clock. Stukopin just has over 2 minutes. So very nice time advantage for Dinara going into the final moves before move 40.
So let's move on maybe to different game. We have a result. Kamil's Dragon game against Robert Agassarian. They agreed on a draw. Wow,
Really?
that's
Wow.
surprising.
Because we do have a 30 move no draw rule. They agreed to a draw on move 31 in what seemed to be a very complex and fighting position.
But Kamil is still the leader of the tournament, so let's see, maybe we will be able to get him to the studio to talk about him. What are his goals for this tournament?
Absolutely, and I mean, maybe taking the draw was just a matter of not taking too much risk, just play it safe, given that the position was very complex. Both players were running low on time, and sometimes when you're leading a tournament, you don't want to go too crazy. You want to stay disciplined. You want to make good and well-informed decisions, and you don't want to take too much risk. So maybe not a bad decision by Kamil to take the draw.
So we have only last game in the tournament B, Dinara Sadukasova against Andrei Stukopin. So that's the only game to keep an eye on. So maybe let's move to the tournament A. What about Jeffrey Jung, Peter Prohaska? Is it total draw now?
I mean, every time we look at this game, more material coming off the board makes me sleepier and sleepier. King f3 just played. I'm not sure who is even playing for a win here. I mean, I really don't know.
Do you think that white wants to go king g3, king h4, king g5, king f6?
Just walk around with the king, try and create some play. I mean, it just seems like there's not enough pawns on the board to create any active plans. But one thing I know about Jeffrey, he does not like to take draws in too many positions. I actually played him a few years ago at one of the tournaments in St. Louis, and I played him in the last round, where he was leading the tournament. A draw would guarantee him first place and a very nice prize. I offered him a draw on maybe move 10, and he turned it down as black, and he was playing for a win throughout the whole game.
I played with Jeffrey also like about 4 years ago here in a close tournament, and we also drew. It was very long game. We were the last in the tournament hall, but it was very fighting, and none of us wanted to make a draw. But you know, in this position, I feel like he has nothing to. Maybe Peter has nothing to lose. He can just improve his bishop to d5, walk around with the king, and see if there are any chances.
That's true. We have to keep in mind that maybe Peter is playing for 2 results, but I'm sure this game can go on for a lot longer. In the meantime, we are going to take a break, and we will be back with a guest.
A moment comes in chess when you need to test yourself at a different level. Chess 24 Premium offers the tools that you need to reach your maximum potential. From hundreds of interactive video lessons to becoming part of the Chess 24 community. You can analyze with friends or coach your students live. You get 24/7 coverage of chess news and events, access to premium analysis and commentary, and the chance to interact with grandmasters and other top players and coaches. Get advice from the best and even challenge them to a battle. Be the best chess player you can be. It's time to level up your game with Chess 24 Premium membership.
There's a weekend vacation, a one-tank trip in a nearby city you won't want to skip. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton. There's museums full of art and super fun slides. Upside-down concretes, twisty, turny rides. Houses full of magic, some with butterflies. Gardens growing flowers, parks with giant eyes. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton.
This August, the best chess players in the world are coming to St. Louis for the Grand Chess Tour. The St. Louis Rapid and Blitz and Sinkfield Cup tournaments will feature the world's best right here in St. Louis. St. Louis Chess Club is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and these tournaments will be a highlight you won't want to miss. For tickets and more information, go to stlouischessclub.org.
This is a crucial situation in this game. Matheny must make a move, but what will it be? All eyes are on Matheny.
Could make a move a lot easier if you weren't doing that right next to me.
It doesn't bother me. Check.
The St. Louis Chess Club, celebrating 10 years of promoting, teaching, and playing the game of chess. Visit the St. Louis Chess Club and help celebrate our 10th anniversary.
Welcome back to the studio, everyone. I'm International Master Eric Rosen, joined by tournament leader Camille Dragon. Congratulations so far on leading the tournament.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
pretty good beginning.
Sure, why not? You had a relatively quick but fighting draw today. Perhaps you could take us through the game and maybe talk about the key moments.
Yeah, sure.
So it started as what seemed to be a relatively positional Queen's Gambit declined. Was this an opening that you were expecting?
Yeah, my opponent is playing only this variation, so.
Mm-hmm. And at what point were you maybe out of your preparation or out of your comfort zone?
Honestly, G6 was new, kind of new. I saw one game after G6, it was Carson Aranya, but after E3, Bishop F5, Carson played Queen D2.
Queen D2.
The idea is to play, I think, G4 and to develop somehow. But I didn't know how, because Aronian played after Queen D2 H5. What is I don't think it's good move, because now after Bishop D3, this is like a better reduction for me than in the game, because pawn on H5 is pretty.
Yeah,
bad.
H5 seems weakening, and sometimes you don't want to commit your pawns too early, as it is creating weaknesses on the king side. So was Bishop D3 improvised then?
I knew that I have two moves here, Queen D2 or Bishop D3, and I just didn't decide before the game what should I play, so during the game I just was thinking like 5 minutes and I chose Bishop D3 because it's like safer option, I think.
Fair enough. So did you feel like you had any chances in this game? I mean, we were looking at it throughout the broadcast, and we thought, we thought the opening was relatively quiet, but then later in the middle game, I mean, it seemed like there were many complications.
Yeah, it was. I think I was a little better somewhere, but I'm not sure where exactly, because here I didn't know how should I play. I knew that I should play E4 somewhere, but I didn't know where exactly.
Sure, E4 is maybe one of the only pawn breaks in the position to consider. Katerina and I were playing this out before the broadcast, and I was suggesting perhaps this unusual maneuver, knight A2 to C1 to D3, getting perhaps a more ideal knight in the center. Is this something that you considered?
Yeah, but I considered it before, like before putting rook on D1. I wanted to, and no, even earlier.
Oh, earlier.
Instead of rook E1,
So knight a2 or knight e2 in this position?
Yeah, I wanted to start knight e2. But I wasn't sure about rook c8, for instance, knight c1 and c5 maybe.
This is exactly what Katerina and I were playing out, where it seems like Black could maybe take advantage of the awkwardness of White's maybe slow plan.
Yeah, now I cannot allow him to play c4, so I have to take it, knight c5. But maybe I'm fine here. I can play knight d4, for instance.
Knight d4, and yeah, I thought this was maybe something which could happen where you go for some positional play against this isolated d-pawn, but you are maybe a bit passive in this position.
Yeah, I was like knight b3, knight e4, I wasn't sure about that.
Sure, yeah. So let's go back to the game and let's zoom forward. Were there any moments where you thought maybe you had any deviation to get some advantage?
Yeah, like instead of bishop e5, I wanted to play e4, but I realized that there is not much for me. I think after taking everything there.
It's just trading everything off, right?
Yeah, like knight e4, knight e4. I wanted to take by knight on e4 because I thought that it would be good for me, but after knight d5 I realized that he will just play queen d7, queen f5, or queen d7, rook e6. And I was like, okay, even after bishop g3, and even if I play somewhere knight c5, he can just take it. And after that f6, king f7.
Sure, yeah, it doesn't seem too impressive for White.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not better there.
So let's go forward towards the end of the game. I do want to ask how the game ended, because it seemed like there was no repetition. Did you offer a draw? Did he offer a draw?
Yeah, I thought that I'm for sure not better. I think it's equal position, but I felt even a little uncomfortable, so I offered a draw. But probably it wasn't like nothing special.
I see.
Because after gf here, queen f2, king f2, he can play something like knight b6, I think.
And yeah, I mean, it seemed like White's pawns could be weak in the long term and maybe slightly more pleasant for Black.
Yeah, because my rook is quite active, so I can play always something like rook e6, but
Sure.
I didn't want to play it. So.
Fair enough, yeah, I mean, why not? Save some energy for the future rounds. Now,
Yeah.
you are leading the tournament. You have, what, three out of 4, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes.
Do you know who you play tomorrow?
Against Vladimir.
Oh, against Vladimir, who is very much struggling throughout this event. Do you have any thoughts going into that game?
Honestly, I'm a little scared of this game because he is like 0 out of 4, but he is very unpredictable player, so he can just start playing very strong in I don't know when, so I hope it's not tomorrow.
I see, yeah, it's certainly nothing to take for granted, and I'm sure you're going to still have to take it very seriously. I do want to ask too, is this your first time in St. Louis?
Yeah, that's my first time here.
And what do you think about the tournament so far, the tournament conditions? Do you like it here?
Yeah, I'm very positively surprised of the conditions of the tournament. It's like something new in US for me, because the tournaments in US are much faster than this one. There is like a couple rounds per day. So I had some problems when I arrived here to get used to it.
Fair enough, yeah. So I won't keep you any longer. I'll let you go, get some rest, let you prepare for tomorrow. Best of luck in the rest of your games.
Okay, thank you.
For sure. So moving back to the games which are still going, I'm scrolling through here. There are a lot of games still over, or still, there are a lot of the games over, but there are some games still happening. The game that still catches my eye is the battle between Vasif Darabeli and Rinat Jumabayev. When we last left off, I thought the game was just going to go maybe a few more moves and Black would resign, but Rinat appears to be fighting here, even though he's down a rook. The position still seems maybe not that simple to actually break through for White. The current position, Black has just played bishop e8 to g6, and we do have to keep in mind there are some targets for Black to attack. The rook on b1 is now aligned with the bishop, and also this king on h1, it doesn't have the greatest shelter in the world, given that White has extended most of the pawns on the king side. Vasif is thinking here, he has plenty of time, and I'm sure he's just looking for some perhaps simplifying variations. If he can force any sort of queen trade, he'll just be a rook up a rook in the endgame. But I'm sure he's also maybe looking for a way to to capitalize on still this menacing attack with his rook aligned with black's king. Maybe he's considering some move like pawn take h5, and I mean it looks it looks very, very scary for black. So we'll keep an eye on this game, and I am joined back with Katerina Nemcova. Welcome back, Katerina.
Thank you.
Any thoughts about the game so far?
I would like to look at what's happening in the Benjamin Bok and Varakobian game.
That's right, and this is our key matchup of today. We haven't looked at this game too recently.
It's interesting how the queen was, we were thinking about playing with the queen b3, and suddenly the queen is on g5.
Yeah, so Varakobian did not use your idea of perhaps infiltrating white's territory, and the position has changed drastically since from earlier. White's kings have found safety both on the king side, and now it seems to be a positional struggle. At first glance, I do like white's position, given the rook is beautifully placed on d4, and it's very hard, almost impossible for black to remove this piece. Meanwhile, these pawns on c4 and d5 are fixed on light squares, and I know just a few days ago we had so many games with bishops of the same color, this position no different, where, I mean, it seems like white has some long-term weaknesses to attack in the center.
Yes, and the bishop on e6, I mean, that's almost like a pawn. It doesn't do anything more than just defends the pawn on d5 and maybe defends the square on f5.
That's true. When I teach my younger students and there's a bishop kind of sandwiched between its own two pawns, I like to call this a pointless bishop, where, yeah, it's not that effective in this position. This is why we want pawns on the opposite color of the bishop in such situations.
So white has a pawn kind of advantage on the queen side with the A and B pawn ready to go for some promotion, and it's a long-term advantage for white.
That's very true. Yeah, this 2-on-1 majority has to give white some long-term chances going forward into the endgame. There have been a couple moves played. Vara played rook to e8, and Benjamin Bok played queen c1. And I do have to point out, it appears that this game has not reached move 40 yet. Both players in severe time trouble, being less than a minute, and they still have 8 moves to go.
And queen c1, I like this move. We don't have enough time. There is nothing to think about. So let's just trade the queens. Let's go to a better endgame. Let's have this slight long-term advantage. I think
that's a wise decision for sure. I mean, especially when you have the better pawn structure, you want to go for trades, because when you trade off pieces, the weaknesses amplify. In this case, the more trades that happen in the position, the more worries black probably has with the center pawns. So I think Vara very wisely avoided the queen trade. He played the move queen f6, maybe trying to keep some attacking potential given white's king is placed on f2. And now Benjamin Bok is thinking with less than 30 seconds left.
And we have some developments in the Dinara-Andrei's game. So what if we look there? We thought bishop d6 is a great move, maybe securing white some advantage, and Andrei thought about some interesting moves.
That's right, and we should keep in mind this is a final game happening in Group B. When we last left, it seemed like black was doing very well, but this bishop on d6, this idea that we mentioned earlier, maybe my mistake. White was doing very well, and white seems to be very happy here. But Dinara, her time is dwindling. Looks like she just has under 6 minutes left. And Andrei Stukopin under a minute with 5 moves to go.
And what if we go back to the bishop d6 move and see what happened there?
Yeah,
because Andrei did not play what we thought that was.
Yeah, he played the counter-attacking move bishop g5. I mean, when you're being attacked, of course, defense is the obvious option, but bishop g5, perhaps a nice counterattack. Queen c2 played, and then b4, another counterattack, leaving the rook on f8. Still attacked for the time being. Rook b3 played, and then perhaps the exchange sacrifice bishop f6, targeting the d4 pawn, and maybe making the argument that the bishop on d6 is more valuable than the rook on f8.
And if the bishop on d6 disappears and bishop take f8 and queen take f8 happens, then the c5 pawn will also be a weakness.
It's true. We should point out black would have the intermediate move, bishop take d4 check, force the king to move, and then queen take f8. And yeah, maybe there's some compensation for black in this position. The two bishops can combine very well together, especially in open positions like this. I do want to go forward to the current position, though. There are a lot of developments happening. Rook take e4 is played, bishop g6 with the skewer. Looks like maybe both sides are losing a rook for a bishop, so this might just be a fair trade. But queen c4 check happened, king h8, and many more moves have been played. Rook e1. Okay, so I think this is the current position.
Bishop f7,
After
d5.
king h8, rook e1, bishop f7, d5. Wow, just lunging forward in the center. d5 is supported by the bishop on g2, queen on c4, which brings us to the current position, rook e8.
Finally, Black moves the rook away, doesn't give it up.
That's right, and I'm not sure what's going on here. That is interesting to point out. The rook on f8 was attacked by the bishop for so many moves. I think it was about 6 or 7 moves there. Any thoughts about this position? Who stands better, or is it just too crazy to tell?
Well, Dinara has 2 minutes and 30 seconds, whereas Andrei less than a minute, so that's clearly an advantage. Plus, I think after, what about rook e3?
Yeah, rook
Just
b e3
control
makes a
the
lot of
file.
sense. I mean, the rook seems to be doing nothing on b3 currently, and the e file is one of the only open files, so why not?
We don't
why
want
not
to be
double
also
up?
losing the pawn on b2, so maybe that can be a sacrifice.
That's right. Sometimes positions like this, piece activity is a lot more important than pawns, especially if things start getting tactical. And of course, it's much easier to play in time trouble when you have initiative, and sometimes you don't want to be too materialistic.
My guess is rook e3. That's what's going to happen.
That's right. It seems like Dinara is pondering the position. Both players silhouetted there with being right next to the window. We will keep an eye on this game. They have 2 more moves to make until move 40. Any other games to go to?
We don't have too many games left. Do you want to go Peters Prohaskas and Jeffrey Junk?
You keep directing to that game.
Or let's go to Vasif Dorabaili against Rinat Jumabayev.
Yeah, let's not look at the Jeffrey
That
Jung
is an
game.
exciting game.
So Vasif is still thinking here. I mean, he has enough time to maybe sort through all the complications. But sometimes, as we saw yesterday in the Alejandro game, sometimes the hardest thing to do in chess is to convert an advantage or prove a winning position. And maybe Rinat is trying to use some last resources to put the pressure on Vasif.
And it's interesting, let's say Vasif plays something like pawn takes h5. Maybe Rinat can just play bishop f5, and the pawn is actually blocking the rook on h2 to attack the king, and the king can be in safety.
It's actually a really nice idea. Bishop f5 basically closes down a lot of open lines on the king side, and the pawn on h5 actually acts as a shield for the black king, given the rook is just kind of staring at its own pawn. I do like this idea, bishop f5.
Plus, there are some tricks, like knight f2, after pawn takes h5, maybe knight f2 and taking the rook on b1.
Additionally, yeah, we always have to keep in mind the tactics in the position. Knight f2, very possible. So you're saying if pawn take h5, knight f2, let's say rook take f2, though I don't know if this would work given that white has queen f7 in the very end.
And if takes?
If take. I mean, white's up a bishop, but maybe it's playable. King g8.
King g8. I mean, I don't want to trade. No, this is probably lost. No, never mind. I do have to go.
I mean, that's the
maybe
thing
the
for
position
Vasif.
is just lost. It's very hard to.
With so many lines, I mean, if the position ever simplifies, Vasif is the one-up material. So
Maybe
I
this
do
is
like your
simply
initial
lost
idea.
anyway.
Right. I think if we see this position happen after g take h5, we're probably likely to see bishop f5. And then it's more of a question like how does white break through? And sometimes these situations, the better side has to actually come up with ideas, and all black has to do is react to what white is doing. So that's why Vasif will probably continue to take a lot of time here, and he appears to be incredibly focused, hovering over the board. Rinat Jumabayev maybe coming back to the board, sipping some tea or coffee. I wouldn't be surprised if Vasif takes some more time here to figure things out.
I mean, he has all the time he needs, so I don't think he's worried about this game. So let's move on somewhere else. You don't want to see Peter Prohaska's game, so what about VAR and Benjamin Bok?
Yeah, the key matchup of today. Yeah, let's get to that game, because when we last left, both sides were in time trouble. They are still both in severe time trouble, both players having less than 1 minute on the clock But they have one more move to make time control. We should stay on this game at least until they reach move 40.
And VAR has 17 minutes to do so.
17 seconds.
17 seconds, yeah.
Not too much time. And VAR is somewhat notorious for getting low on time. Seems like he very enthusiastically just played his last move, rook to e8. Still very, very focused on the position. And that was actually the 39th move. So one more move for each player to reach move 40. Time is ticking down for Benjamin Bach. Less than 20 seconds left.
Is he going to play something like rook a3 to try to trade it?
At rook a3, maybe not a bad decision, given you want to go for simplifications. He played the move, looks like bishop c2, if I can see correctly. And
it's a nice trick, because
trapped.
after rook takes c3, there is bishop h7.
Wow, so is white winning material here? VAR might be in trouble. He doesn't have much time. Less than 20 seconds on the clock.
Or is that a sacrifice that VAR is going to play bishop f5?
I mean, what else to do? He might be, is he forced to sacrifice? He has less than 10 seconds, made his move rook takes c3, which does reach move 40, but it allows the simple tactic bishop h7 check, and I believe we can expect this position after king take h7, queen takes c3. Is white just up a clean exchange here?
I mean, I thought that there are more chances when the pawn is on b3. Here I feel like white is safe.
Yeah, I mean, these two pawns still fixed on light squares, the bishop still being pointless on e6. We should mention black does have a pawn for the exchange, but this past b pawn, this could lead white to winning the game.
So let's go back to Dinara's game, because she did play rook b e3 and sacrifice the pawn on b2. So what is happening there? They reached the move 40, so they have extra 30 minutes to think about for the remainder of the game.
Yeah, this is another crazy position, and they did reach time control, so both players having some time to maybe calm down, get some coffee, figure out what's going on. This could be a very long fight from here. Let's just go back and see how they came to this position, because it looks like Dinara did play your recommendation, rook b e3, going for e-file control.
I'm thinking about the position now, though, what if we play maybe just rook d1? I think just keeping the pressure on d5 can be also an interesting option.
Oh, you're saying instead of rook b e3?
Yes.
Rook d1.
And now my idea is just to move the queen away, and then if you take on d5, I'm happy to recapture with light square bishop.
That's right. We should mention this this setup with the bishop on d6 and pawn on c5. It's so stable, and maybe white should have left the tension in the position. But I do admire rook b e3. I mean, why not?
It's definitely an interesting idea to go for an attack and try something. I do like this move.
Because the rook on e8 was probably black's best rook. After it gets traded, black is left with the rook on a8, which is doing nothing in the current position. White did lose a pawn on b2, but white got some activity. Rook e7, bishop g8 played. This setup looks a bit iffy for black, given the king on h8, bishop on g8, and it seems like white just has complete dominance in the center.
That's true, and now black probably has to recapture on d5, otherwise white will take on c6, and that pawn is going to be dangerous.
Well, white's threat is probably to move the queen first, maybe to square like f4 or g4.
Queen d3 was already played.
Oh, queen d3 was played. Okay, so white does have the threat of taking on c6. And now it's Andrei's move. What to consider here for black? There's still the tension. Does black have to take on d5?
Bishop f6 can be alternative to go and attack the rook.
Yeah, bishop f6 perhaps. Definitely a candidate move. You can see Dinara not at the board. Andrei thinking. Sometimes when you reach move 40, you just want to stand up, stretch your legs, get something to eat, because it's still probably going to be a long fight ahead.
Yes. So what if we go back to Vasif's game? We have some new moves there.
So yeah, Vasif finally played a move after a very long think.
21 minutes he spent on move bishop h4. Wow.
Which we were not considering. I think we were looking at the most natural g take h5. Bishop h4
Maybe
What's
he
the
wants to
idea?
prevent all the knight moves to g3 or f2 and be always ready to recapture with bishop.
That's true. We should keep in mind when the bishop is 3 files away from a knight, it does a good job of controlling a lot of squares that the knight wants to move to. As we can see, just the geometry in this position, the knight really can't move towards the king side without being captured by the bishop. We should mention, though, the rook on b1 still undefended, still aligned. If black really wants to, maybe a move like knight g3 is still possible, but if we look how the position could unfold, I don't think it would end too well for black in this line after bishop take b1, rook take h5. This would just be winning for white.
And his idea can be also going with the bishop to e1 and d2 and forcing the exchange of bishop for a knight. Because every exchange benefits white, who is rook up. Let's not forget that.
That's true. That's actually a very creative maneuver, which didn't come to my mind immediately. Where, yeah, you want the queen-bishop battery, but you want the queen to be leading the battery. For those who don't know, a battery in chess is when two pieces are aligned that move in the same direction. In this case, the queen and bishop moving along the diagonal. But if we imagine the bishop reaches, if we go back to the current position, if the bishop were to reach this d2 square, the queen would be leading the battery with a very menacing threat, queen h6 check. And if I'm not mistaken, I just want to go back earlier this game because I think Vasif used a very similar idea in the middle game. If I go looking here on move 16, just a quick throwback to the middle game when he played bishop d1. It was pretty much the same idea where he wanted to play the very sensible queen d3 and bishop c2. So
I think that's what we can feel from the Grandmasters game, how they really know what their pieces are doing and maybe when they are not placed in the best way and they know how to improve them.
it's very true. It's not just about optimizing the pieces, but it's about making the pieces work together to put maximum pressure on the opponent.
So bishop h4. Now Rinat Jumabayev has to think what to do next. He's only half point out of 3 games, so psychologically for him this game is also very difficult. He doesn't want to have another loss.
It's not easy. I mean, all the momentum going in Vasif's direction, not just given the opening from this game, great opening preparation by Vasif, but the tournament situation, Vasif having 3 out of 3, Rinat Jumabayev struggling to score points this tournament. The momentum can continue in Vasif's favor.
So let's look at Peter Prohaska against Jeffrey Shong. Let's
Oh,
see
man.
what's happening in that endgame. Who is playing for a win, or
You're
why
really
are
trying to
they
put me to
not?
sleep.
Why are they not deciding on a draw? Who is playing for the win here?
I mean, it looks like maybe white is slightly for choice, given this slightly more beautiful bishop on d5. But Jeffrey has a time advantage, so you never know in situations like this if maybe Jeffrey's the one playing on, trying to put Peter in time pressure to provoke some blunder later on.
It's interesting that white played knight b3, allowing the black knight to jump to c4. So white is saying, I don't care if you jump to c4, probably I take you with the bishop and I will be fine.
Yeah, a line like this, knight c4, bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4.
Knight c5.
Knight c5, yeah, nice active square for the knight. And then maybe white has some chances in this position, given all of black's pawns would be isolated and the knight can't be challenged by the bishop.
So if Jeffrey does not decide to go to c4, then the white knight can go to c5 and maybe try to annoy black there.
Yeah, knight c5 coming, but I mean, even if white finds perfect squares for both the knight and the bishop, is white really making that much progress to cause issues for black?
Yes, I don't know. I do think it's equal, but you never know what can happen in these games and how grandmasters can improve their pieces.
So I have an interesting question for you. Let's say Magnus Carlsen is playing white and you're playing black. How confident are you that you could draw this position?
Wow, that's a tough question. I think playing Magnus Carlsen, you can be never confident about anything. I remember he won a game, rook and game, I think 3-on-3 pawns. I mean, that's a dead draw.
I actually know what game you're referring to. I think that was Carlsen Ponomarev. That was a great instructive position, showing that sometimes even very drawish positions can be maybe still having some life to them if you're Magnus Carlsen.
Yes, exactly. So let's see what is happening in Andrei Stupakin. Did they make any moves there? Dinara against Andrei.
Yeah, let's take a look. Queen d3 was played, so getting out of the pin from the bishop on g8, but not too many developments. Maybe we can speculate what black is going to do here. I mean, we were both admiring white's beautiful setup from earlier, but we should keep in mind the one perhaps good thing that black can play for in this position. There is a queenside majority with the a5 pawn, b4 pawn against the a2 pawn. So maybe black can perhaps dream of pushing the pawns at some point, but doesn't seem to be an immediate plan for black.
So bishop f6 looks like a very natural move.
At bishop f6, get the bishop to safety.
So what
with
do you
tempo on
play
the rook.
afterwards?
I would probably move the rook, but the question is where to move it to. I mean, usually, especially in these endgame situations, you want to keep your rook on the most active square as possible. I'm wondering if white could play the very adventurous rook c7, having the rook deep in black's territory.
And that looks like a great move. I'm just thinking, maybe are you giving up the e-file? E-file, that can be
Oh, you
good
would want
for
to play
me.
a move like queen e8?
Queen e8, just trying to see, I mean, let's say I give up the pawn on c6 and try for some counterattack.
So queen e1 check. Yeah, we do have to keep in mind maybe white's king could be a bit unsafe in these potential lines. Bishop to f1. Though if white's not getting mated and not losing material, I mean, these especially this pawn on c6 could be making the game decisive for white.
Yeah, so let's say I play rook e8 here.
So rook e8, trying to play this out. Actually, this looks a little bit scary for white, given black's pieces seem to be coordinating very well, and I'm not sure if white can make enough progress before the king side falls apart.
But the good part for both players is that they have 30 minutes. They have a lot of time to calculate and really see what is the best variation for them.
That's right, and I think Dinara is the one dictating the game. I mean, she doesn't have to be so adventurous with rook c7 if she wants to keep control over the c file or over the e file. A move like rook e2 or rook e1 very playable, and just try and play restrictive, not let black get any unnecessary counterplay.
So we have nobody is moving in these games. They are all thinking, they are happy to have 30 minutes, reaching the move 40.
And that's what happens after time control. I mean, a lot of the players will maybe hunker down, cool down from the heated time pressure situation. We should keep in mind that if you're watching the broadcast, you can follow all the games on uschesschamps.com and check out the games for yourself. There have been a good number of exciting games today.
Absolutely, they are very instructive how to play with pieces and some crazy tactics.
And we should take a look at just the results so far for this round. If we take a look at Group A, there have been a good number of games that have finished. If we go through, I'm just scrolling down here. We had a few draws so far. Yaro Jerabuk drawing Alexander Injic in a game that we didn't really take a look at.
So let's take a look. We still don't have anything more interesting to look at. Let's see how they made a draw.
Yeah, we can go through this game quickly. Seemed like one of these classic ready English positions, both sides kind of doing their own thing. I actually don't have too much experience in these sort of setups from either side. Have you played an opening like this?
I do play this for black, so it's very solid. We have some ideas, some flexible options with e6, d5, or sometimes e5, f5. But this looks like a very peaceful position.
Yeah, I think both players maybe not having the best result in the tournament. And sometimes when you're not having the best result, you just want to stop the bleeding and have at least a solid game without too many mistakes. Seems like both players were playing like that today, where, okay, not taking too much risk, the position stayed relatively symmetrical, things got traded. I'm looking here, it doesn't seem like either side is playing for much advantage. And do have to point out they did agree to a draw on move 31.
So we have the graphics, so let's look at the live standings for Group A.
Yeah, we have, still some games pending. The key games being Varusian Akobian and, of course, the game with Vasif Darabaili against Rinat Jumabayev. If Vasif or Akobian wins, they stay perfect, and they're getting off to just a perfect start.
And we have a big game tomorrow in Group A, so let's see what is the pairings for tomorrow.
So we have Daniel Friedman against Benjamin Bach, Alexander Injic against Sam Sevian, Jeffrey Zhang against Yaro Zherabuk, Rinat Jumabayev versus Peter Prohaska, and Varakobian against Vasif Darabaili.
We have the two leaders who are 3 out of 3 right now playing tomorrow. That's going to be a very exciting game.
That's right. I mean, that's a huge matchup. Vasif having a perfect score if he can convert his advantage against Akobian, and Akobian always playing for blood, playing with fire, and we'll see if Var can keep his top 100 spot in the live rating list.
Yes, and Var is going to have white, so it's going to be very interesting. So let's see at what are the live standings for Group B.
That's right. We have Camille Dragon, who I interviewed not too long ago, still leading the pack. 3 out of 4, not a bad score. And several players close behind. JJ Ali Morandi drawing his St. Louis University chess coach Alejandro Ramirez today, both standing at 2.5 out of 4. And also Sergei Matsenko with 2.5 out of 4. And I don't want to mention this, but I kind of have to. Vladimir Belis still struggling with the event. What do you do when you have 0 out of 4? How do you fight back in such a long event?
I think the goal is to cut the losses to just want a draw. Let's just have a draw for tomorrow, and then you can refresh yourself and go for a win. I really hope he's gonna make a draw or something tomorrow. Otherwise, that's gonna be so sad to have 5 zeros.
That's very true. So
let's look what are the pairings for tomorrow.
Yeah, in Group B, we have many exciting matchups. Josh Friedel against Dinara Sadua-Kasova, Robert Agasarian against Tatev Abrahamian, Vladimir Belis against Camille Dragon, which I think is going to be the key matchup, the tournament leader against last place. Camille saying that he's a little nervous for that game because when you're playing someone who's not having the best performance, they're probably very loose, they're willing to take risks, and you still have to stay focused and not take anything for granted in this game. We also have JJ Ali Morandi against Sergei Matsenko and Andrei Sukopin against Alejandro Ramirez.
Many exciting games today. So do you want to take a look at anything happening today? Anything more exciting?
I mean, it seems like the players are just using their time to the fullest. We do have maybe one update in the Dinara game where Andrei Sukopin has captured the pawn on d5. Looks like we finally have a result in the Jeffrey Zhang Peter Prohaska game. That game was almost putting me to sleep the entire broadcast, but they have finally agreed to a draw. We can see the kings in the center of the board there. Mike Hummer just collecting the score sheets. So we also see Dinara Sadua-Kasova seems to be very focused against the higher rated Andrei Sukopin in the current position. Both sides having a lot of time. 26 minutes for Dinara, 17 minutes, or just under 18 minutes for Andrei. So still some long battle to go.
Yeah, so our predictions for the results of this game. So Benjamin Bog, Varakobian is going to struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like white is the one certainly playing for a win. But at least the bishop on f5, not so pointless anymore. Perhaps going for this juicy square on d3, maybe somewhat reminiscent of the Dinar game.
Yes. So what about Vasif? Still putting some pressure on Rinat?
Yeah, or if we're not putting some pressure on Vasif. I mean, Vasif is clearly the one playing for a win. And he has still a lot of time to perhaps sort through the complications. I have to put my money on Vasif.
Absolutely, I agree.
So let's go. Is there any other games still going on?
Last game we have in tournament B, Dinara Sadua-Kasova against Andrei Sukopin.
And it appears they are trading on d5. Looks very likely that these light square bishops will get traded. And then it's a kind of a pawn race between black's queenside pawn majority and white's passed c-pawn. I would have to favor white in this position, given the c-pawn is not only well defended, but very far advanced.
That's the importance. The white is going to be faster in going c6, c7, and then the back rank is going to be very dangerous for black.
That's true. The king on h8 looks safe for the time being, but it is cornered, and I mean, at least one of black's pieces will always have to keep an eye on the back rank. So if we imagine bishop take d5, queen take d5, seems like Dinara is playing for the win.
I agree. Well, let's see how the game is going to finish.
And we have one update. Pawn a4 was played. We can see Andrei Sukopin leaving the board there. Positions like this, you do have to play quickly. Time is very important, especially when there's a potential pawn race. Andrei wasting no time playing this move a4. And actually, the idea is very interesting. He might be threatening some move like b3. If we just play a waiting move for white, let's say maybe not the best move, but let's say h3, we can see the threat for black: a3, pawn take b, or b3, pawn take b3, and a3. And this is not what white would want to have happen.
I think a5, a4 is a very interesting move, especially you can see Andrei, again, he doesn't care about the rook on a8. He's like, take the rook for the bishop is more valuable than my bishop on g8 is going to be amazing, supporting the pawns for promotion.
That's actually really interesting. I have to admit, I did not realize the rook is hanging, but if white takes it, it might be drinking the poison, where after queen take a8, whenever you take one of your opponent's bishops and you still have that bishop of the same color, you're the one who can dominate those color squares. In this case, if the light squared bishop for black ever comes to life, there could be some weaknesses around the king side that white would have to worry about.
Maybe black is the one who is now pushing for a win.
Yeah, it seems like a very sharp battle, and I wouldn't be surprised if both players get into time trouble again, given that this could be another very long fight.
Very interesting games. I really enjoy seeing these fighting games, fighting spirit.
So any other games to take a look at? I mean, both players, or pretty much all the players, have enough time to think. I think we'll let the viewers watch the games on their own, and we'll wrap it up very soon. If you want to take a look at the games, you can of course go to uschesschamps.com and see all the games being broadcast live on Chess24. The games are starting at 1 p.m. tomorrow Central Time, and we'll start the broadcast at 3:30 Central Time.
And before we completely sign off, we want to congratulate Ju Wen-jun for winning the 2018 Women World Championship.
That's right. Very impressive win for her, and a historic finish to the Women's Championship.
Absolutely. I think it's the first title for her, and she's going to enjoy it.
Well, we'll have a lot more exciting chess tomorrow. Stay tuned, and see you tomorrow. Take care.
Bye.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.